Can you believe that it is 74 days until the ADCC 2022 World Championships? That is right, 74 days. The clock is ticking. And it is only 9 days until the Who's Next finale, which will feature the match between Isaac Michel and Kyle Chambers for that $10,000 cash prize and a 3-match WNO contract, as well as a match for the heavyweight belt. The Who's Number 1 heavyweight championship belt is on the line. Gordon Ryan versus Pedro Marinho. That is the main topic of today's show. Myself, Howell Teague, and Corey Stockton. We're going to be talking about all that and much more because, Corey, considering that it was America's birthday, the rest of the world didn't get the memo because there was no shortage of some really good grappling events.
Yeah, great time to be a jiu-jitsu fan. 4 huge events over the weekend with some great results and a lot of ADCC implications, as I think every event from here on out will have.
Yeah, 4 events. So there were Raw Grappling in London, England. There was Honor Submission Challenge in Italy. There was the UFC Invitational in Las Vegas. And also there was the American Nationals, IBJJF American Nationals. Very fitting that it should be on the July 4th weekend, right?
Patriotic.
Yeah, fuck yeah. All right, well, let's get into it because before we get into the results, let's talk about some of the news that's happening today. And you can see on the sidebar today, you can see the topics for today's show. We have the news and results where we're talking about Honor Submission Challenge, which featured Mika Galvao, Felipe Panna, Fabricio Andre, and more. We'll be talking about Raw Grappling, the event from London. Hulk Barboza, Lucas Hulk Barboza, Theon Davis, Ash Williams, Diego Pato in action there. And then we'll be getting into, of course, the Gordon Ryan, Pedro Marinho match. And we'll be talking about 10th Planet because these guys, man, they've assembled an army for some of the upcoming events. So lots to talk about in today's show. Strap in, let's go. Don't forget to join us in the YouTube comments, in the live chat. We're monitoring that as we go. I can see there's plenty of conversation happening right now. Send us your questions as we're talking, and we'll do our best to respond to them in between those big stories. Let's kick things off. Let's get things going with the news, and we'll just kind of quick hits today. DreamArt, one of the biggest teams in the world, are announcing they are officially opening a location here in North America pretty much on our doorstep, Houston, Texas.
Yeah, squad is very much growing, right? Well, a team that used to be run out of one facility now has a couple. And moving stateside, I think, is a big move for them. A team that in 2021 at the World Championship had a hard time getting here.
So following in the footsteps of all of the other major teams in jiu-jitsu, DreamArt are expanding and they're basically creating an international presence because up until very recently, and bear in mind that this team, they've only been officially independent as a team since fall of 2021. DreamArt have up until now been based solely in Sao Paulo, Brazil. They had one affiliate gym run by one of their team members, Igor Schneider, in San Antonio, Texas, but not really an official DreamArt facility in that sense. But they'll be opening this facility in Houston, Texas, and we've got a photo of it. You can see the kind of the space that they're going to be running out of. This is going to be in Spring, Texas. It's North Houston. It's about 2.5 hour drive from us, so very excited about that, having this on our doorstep. And right now, we don't know who the main coach will be or which athletes will be based out of this gym. But, Corey, you have to imagine that if they are opening a facility of that size and that scale in North America, that they're going to want to put some of their higher caliber athletes there.
Right, DreamArt has a reputation for being an incredibly professional gym, right? And branching out to the U.S. and into Texas, exactly. You have to imagine that it's going to be more premier athletes, not just DreamArt guys, but I'm sure a lot of athletes that will be flocking to DreamArt in the coming months.
Yeah, this is an opportunity, of course, that as DreamArt expands, you have to think that they may be opening their doors to international athletes because up until now, DreamArt is a squad composed of 100% Brazilian athletes. And their MO of acquiring athletes, aspiring and up-and-coming athletes who are working their way up through the ranks and making them part of this professional squad, you have to think that that team being here in the United States will expand those opportunities to athletes based out of the States as well. Very exciting move there from DreamArt. And yeah, as we get more news, we'll be sure to let you know. So moving on from the DreamArt team to Mika Galvao's Fight Sports Club in Manaus. So Mika Galvao This guy is well known as the father of Mika Galvao. And Mika Galvao isn't just the father of a very good athlete. He's a very good coach to a team full of very good athletes, including Diogo Hayes, including Fabricio Andre, including Luis Paulo, including Brenda Larissa, and more. Now, they have had this relationship with Fight Sports Club up until since last year or so, or possibly 2020. I forget exactly when. But Melky's team represents Fight Sports Club when they compete on the international scene. But a little bit of context. Up until this year, whenever they competed in Abu Dhabi or the UAE JJF events, that is the United Arab Emirates Jiu-Jitsu Federation, or the AJP Tour, when they competed in those events, they represented the Al Wadia Club, which was a local team that would sponsor them to compete in those events. Well, they've recently announced that they are partnering up with the Commando Group. Now, for people outside of the Middle East, this might not mean a lot to them, Corey, but this is a significant move, right?
Yeah, and especially given how dominant they were just at the recent World Pro, right? 4 of them, as we see here, won titles.
Including
Mika Galvao, Nathaniel Fernandez, Brenda Larissa, Diogo Hayes.
So the Commando Group is one of the biggest and most powerful and most successful teams in Abu Dhabi. And the name kind of gives it away. It is kind of part of the armed forces because a lot of people know that Jiu-Jitsu is taught in the school system in Abu Dhabi. It is a mandatory physical education subject for all school students in the United Arab Emirates. Well, that Jiu-Jitsu is also taught to soldiers on all military bases in the UAE as well. And a lot of the athletes who go to Abu Dhabi, some of them teach in schools, and they'll be teaching to elementary school kids, middle school kids, high school kids. But some of the athletes go and they teach the military. And they tend to be very high caliber athletes. And they're not teaching little kids who don't want to be there. They're teaching literally trained killers. So it is an elite training facility. And the Commando Group has long been known as one of the more powerful teams in Abu Dhabi. And I think this is a powerful acquisition in acquiring one of the most powerful teams in Jiu-Jitsu, and they will represent them on that local scene.
Yeah, I'd imagine no one you want teaching your armed forces more than Mika Galvao and Mika Galvao.
And it's also about flying that flag, right? It's also about representing a powerful team. You want the best athletes on your team. But the opening to that question, is it about sort of switching teams and stuff? This is almost like transfer season. This is almost like an international soccer club, signing a player, or somebody switching, mid-season. In any major sports franchise, this is no different. But something a little bit unusual for a lot of people in the jiu-jitsu world.
Yeah, we don't really have an off season, right, or a trade deadline in jiu-jitsu as you do in many organized sports. But there does seem to be kind of a period in every year where people change teams, or people kind of make some moves, major affiliations make moves, as happened here. So,
yeah, interesting to see exactly what that means and how many of Melky's team we'll see competing in that circuit. The World Pro is coming up in November of this year. Of course, that's well after ADCC, but look for them to represent Commando Group when they do go to compete in Abu Dhabi. All right. So we're just getting through these results as quickly as we can here because we've got more to cover and we've got a lot of stuff to talk about. But the next one we want to hit is the fact that at the recent UFC Invitational, now this was an event that took place in Las Vegas over the weekend, it was a quintet-style team versus team challenge, and it featured various fighting promotions as the team. So you had Uriah Faber's fighting promotion, you had Anthony Pettis, among others, and what they did was they assembled teams to go against each other in submission grappling matches. Well, Anthony Pettis reached out to Gordon Ryan and asked him if he would be able to gather some athletes. Well, gather some athletes he did. Gordon Ryan put together 4 members from the New Wave team to represent Anthony Pettis at the UFC Invitational, and they cleaned up.
Yeah, I mean, if you're putting together a squad, you can't think of any better than really a squad of 3 ADCC invitees and another tough training room member at New Wave.
So the 4 team members, you can see them here with Anthony Pettis from left to right: Christos Papadopoulos, Daniel Manasoyu, or aka Big Dan, Oliver Taza, and Giancarlo Bodoni. of those 4, 3 of them are ADCC trials winners.
That's right. Big Dan, Oliver Taza, and Giancarlo Bordoni all won, and I think they all won in different weight categories as well.
So Big Dan had a couple of big matches throughout his tournaments. He picked up a number of quick submissions, but I got to say one of his most entertaining matches was that against Andy Varela. We'll talk about Andy a little later in today's show, but wow, that was an incredible match. And Andy just went at him and just didn't respect Dan's dangerous submissions, because Dan had hit a couple of really nasty subs in a row, and Andy just went out there fearless and went after him. Oliver Taza submitted J-Rod with a straight ankle lock. That was a really interesting match. And Giancarlo Bordoni had a great match with PJ Barge of 10th Planet as well. So some really interesting results out of that one. And congratulations to the New Wave squad. Well, that's almost it from the news and results, but we want to hit the American Nationals before we move on, because the IBJJF American Nationals, Corey, now this has never quite had the same level of prestige or status as maybe, let's say, one of the Grand Slam events, such as Brazilian Nationals. But this year seemed like the action was as good as ever.
Yeah, especially, both the gi and no gi action were dialed in, but I saw a lot of really intense no-gi specific matches in both the brown and black belt divisions. A lot of really fast paced, a lot of wrestling up, a lot of leg locks, and Hunter Colvin especially stood out to me. He had 3 submissions in his 3-match day, finished I think all 3 rear naked chokes. Really flexed his wrestling. One of the most not surprising results per se, but was that of Felipe Andre, who had 2 heel hook victories.
Showcasing his developing leg lock game, actually.
We'll see that in just a minute. Oh, here we go.
Yeah, so Felipe Andre has, we've always known that he's had this really savage straight ankle lock, but has actually lost by a heel hook in the past. It seems that he's maybe invested in that part of the game, and well, the results speak for themselves.
Absolutely. David Garmo here also won his division and took 3rd in the absolute. Garmo, of course, a savage when he gets a chin strap on his opponent.
Oh, he's a headhunter, right?
For sure. But yeah, so some great results. We're going to see a little bit more, I think, of Felipe Andre here. This was the no-gi absolute winner, who had a really just mean knee bar at the end. But this was the semifinal where he collected an equally kind of vicious straight ankle lock here.
Yeah, so this is Thiago. Excuse my pronunciation of his last name, but I want to say Saldanha, and a representative of Renzo Gracie, and he looked so sharp in those matches, right?
Yeah, he ended up taking 2nd in his weight category and won a rematch against Aaron Teagues in the final with just a vicious knee bar. You heard it pop from across the room.
Ooh, and so that's a little bit of the best no-gi action. Let's take a look at this highlight featuring the best gi matches. And I would like to know, really, what stood out for you from the gi matches here?
It was really just the kind of the pace and the intensity. We saw a little bit of Ronaldo Jr. He won his division. And Felipe Andre, again, of course, just in these opens and these American Nationals events, he is seemingly unbeatable, right? He's got such a fierce snap down, his back takes, he's developing his triangles, his ankle lock is world class.
And I'm seeing a lot of familiar faces here. I'm seeing Elizabeth Clay, I'm seeing Michael Lira Jr., I'm seeing Queixinho. Obviously, we see there Natalie Ribeiro, Janaína Maia. We saw Felipe Andre. It seems like the big names came out for this one. And what stood out to you results-wise? Like, who impressed you the most?
Ronaldo Jr. looked phenomenal, but I was really impressed by the lightweight winner, Michael Lira, who beat Pablo Lavicelli in the final. Did a really good job of kind of controlling the pace in all of his matches.
Wow, you see some absolute division matches here as well. Love it. Love the back take there. Really, really creative stuff. Well, it just goes to show that the gi season is kind of transitioning into ADCC season, but there's still plenty of opportunities to get your gi fix if you know where to look. Cool. Well, let's move on and let's hit some of the major international events that took place over the weekend, including, I think we should get into Honor Submission Challenge. So Honor Submission Challenge was an event that took place in Sardinia, Italy, in the capital city of Sardinia, Cagliari. And for a debut event in Europe, they made sure to invite some really big names, including Mika Galvao, including Felipe Panna and Fabricio Andre, all victorious at the Honor Submission Challenge. And we'll start off, we'll run this highlight video of Mika Galvao because, well, all of them went undefeated and they competed in slightly different formats. Here is Mika Galvao opening his match, 20 seconds into his opening match, and he's hitting a flying armbar. So Mika Galvao competed in a 4-man tournament, winning 2 matches. And, Mika Galvao, he just looks so sharp. I think that it's performances like this that it makes you realize that why Mika Galvao is just so far ahead of everybody else.
Yeah, for somebody who has such what you might consider a high-risk game, right? Those high-flying techniques, those flying attacks, he's so precise. So even when he's taking big risks, nothing's ever out of place.
So this was the opening match, a rear naked choke win against Jack Tiley. And then he followed it up with a match against Jed Hugh in the final of the 4-man bracket. Jed Hugh scored a triangle against Omer Emanueli of Israel to qualify to go into the final against Mika. And you can see that Mika here, the guard pass into the top position. And I want you to pay attention, not just to this mount transition right here. This is a really interesting way to step over into the mount. But I want you to pay attention to the way that Mika Galvao attacks for this mounted triangle. The head control, pinning the wrist to the ground, and then following Jed Hughes' motion, he drops off for this triangle from the back. Let's pay attention to this, right? But this is a beautiful sequence.
Yeah, it's absolutely flawless and really well calculated. The exact step over from mount. And just, yeah, even the sneaking of the second leg in, as if he's drilled this 1,000 times.
So that was Mika Galvao's performance, and we'll take a look at a similar sequence to that triangle in just a moment. But before we go too deep, let's take a look at Felipe Panna, because I think there are a lot of eyes on Felipe Panna from this tournament, because, of course, Felipe Panna has a very big match, August 7th in Dallas, Texas. He's going up against Gordon Ryan in a no time limit submission only match. So people were very interested to see what Felipe Panna looked like, because he is literally weeks away from that match. And as you can see, an absolute heat-seeking missile in getting onto the back of his opponent in the opening round. Again, a 4-man tournament, catching the rear naked choke, and then having to deal with the very elusive, the very wily veteran Wagner Hoscher.
Yeah, something's never changed, and Felipe Panna looking for his opponent's back is one of them. He's so good at getting there and finishing, but Wagner, as you might expect, makes that very challenging for the most part. When Felipe got there via overtime, he made quick work. So
to make it clear, that video right there of the rear naked choke against Wagner, so it went the distance. And then the rules of this event, they were submission only, but they had an EBI style overtime round. Wagner had 3 minutes to attack from Felipe Panna's back first. He could not submit Felipe, but Felipe did not escape. But then when Felipe took the back of Wagner, he submitted Wagner in 32 seconds. So not only does Felipe still have the ability to teleport onto people's backs, but when he gets there, his finishing ability, 2 rear naked chokes in a row, still as good as ever.
That's something that he's been well renowned for. That's been the thorn in Gordon Ryan's side, is Felipe Panna's ability to get to the back and finish from the back. So if that's any sign that Felipe Panna still does what he does best, there you go.
Look out. Well, the final performance that we want to highlight from Honor Submission Challenge is that of Fabricio Andre. Let's roll this highlight video and you get to see the famous power-up at the beginning of the match. So he competed in a 3-man round-robin tournament. He had 2 matches. This first match against Jack Sear of the UK. And I want to point out Fabricio Andre's amazing footwork in passing the guard. And then, again, pay attention to this, the mounted triangle, the wrist, pinning the wrist to the floor, and the head control and stepping over into the mounted triangle. A slightly different finish, but an almost identical setup to what Mika used in his match.
Definitely looks like that's something that they've been working in that training room in Manaus. Fabricio here finished it from the mount, while Mika was able to transition to the back off of it, but the setup was identical and something that is very fitting of their overall grappling style.
Now, this was a very short match against the Italian Alessio Sacchetti, a strong grappler who had a good performance. And look at this. This is just a couple of moments of this of this great scramble here. The caption on Instagram said it well. He tried to Fabricio Andre, and he paid the price because he threw up the flying triangle. Fabricio Andre was able to get out and then hit this really unusual armbar finish, which we've seen Mika Galvao do. It looks so familiar.
Yeah, their styles are very, very similar and very persistent at attacking specific things, right? They attack the arm when their opponent turns away. They attack the neck from the mount. The Mika Galvao style, I guess you could call it, is kind of identifiable when you watch it enough.
Yeah, there's something in the water there in Manaus. Those kids, so impressive. And yeah, everybody going out there and putting on great shows. 100% submission rate for Mika Galvao, for Felipe Panna, and for Fabricio Andre. We have all the matches on FloGrappling. You can go back and watch all of those, and you can catch up on the action from the weekend, because I imagine you were probably a little bit busy. Anyway, let's move on, and we'll talk about another of the major European events that went down over the weekend, that of Raw Grappling. Raw Grappling took place in London, England. This was their second event. Their first event took place at the end of 2021, featured a number of big names competing in an 8-man tournament, and then also had Lucas Hulk Barboza in a super fight. Well, this time it was just a series of super fights, and it featured some really interesting talent. Let's take a little look at this, shall we? Producer Tyler, if you would please, can you bring up the first of the highlight videos? Let's take a look at Lucas Hulk Barboza's highlight video against that of Thomas Brecher. So, from the UK, representing Gracie Barra, a very powerful athlete, Thomas, man, he went head-to-head with Hulk and kind of tested Hulk's wrestling a little bit. You know, you could see it was a little bit chippy there, the aggressive hand fighting. Thomas certainly not backing down from Hulk, who has a reputation of physically imposing himself on his opponents. Thomas showed no feature in going headfirst into his opponent, but this is the Hulk show, and Hulk did what he does best. Got top position, using his wrestling, managed to pass the guard, and then, after getting the back, finished with another one of those armbar triangles from the back, an attack that we're seeing again and again here, Corey.
Yeah, I think arm bars are resurging, but especially in a position as dominant as the rear triangle, the arm bar is almost indefensible, right? You're so exposed. But really excited to see that Thomas Brecher brought it to Hulk this way, because we consistently get the best version of Lucas Barboza when he's physically, when he meets a physical test.
You're right. Yeah, it's that is when Hulk raises his game. Somebody comes to him with that kind of energy, and he'll match it, and he'll show what he's really made of. So credit to Thomas Brecher for putting on a great show there, going down, fighting. But we love that. Right? Let's hear a little bit from Hulk, because in his post-match interview, quite an interesting sort of tease that he gave. Now, we've reported on this in the past that Hulk has signed an MMA contract with PFL, who are known as one of the bigger organizations here in the United States. It's interesting, we haven't seen him fight yet, but that could happen pretty soon. Play the tape and let's take a listen to this.
You know, I'm fighting everything that, it's, that they invite me, and I'm really focused on doing gi right now. No gi right now. I'm pretty much want to, until ADCC, I want to keep it like that, just no gi. And, who knows, any event, hit me up, I'll be down. Maybe MMA. I might do an MMA fight like before ADCC, and I'm looking forward to it, because MMA is like no gi as well, and it's there's no involved with the gi. It's a different set. I have to get used to with some movements, but I'm pretty confident my game is like the same as fighting no gi. So the only exception that I would take it if it showed, because I have contract with PFL. And if they give me a fight before ADCC, I would do it. But it have to be planned. It have to be at least like a month before. So who knows? Let's see.
Kind of bold, if you ask me, for Lucas Hulk Barboza to try and slide in an MMA fight right between now and ADCC. As we mentioned, there are only 74 days as of today until ADCC. And of course, he would need some time to get ready for an MMA fight, at the very least, to drop the weight, let alone train for the fight. And then, of course, he would need time to recover before competing at ADCC September 17th. So, Hulk, as he said there, the MMA fight would need to be sometime in August. But it's very possible we could see Hulk dust off the gloves.
Yeah, some guys compete best when they compete often, right? And Hulk definitely strikes me as one of those athletes where if he's constantly being challenged, he's constantly pushing forward.
Let's take a look at the next highlight from Raw Grappling, and that, of course, was Theon Davis. So Theon Davis, she went out there, last-minute replacement against Victoria Vieira. She was originally scheduled to compete against Bianca Basilio. That match wasn't able to take place, but Theon went out there and she does what she did best. Arm drag to the back, top control, domination, and then a submission via armbar. A trending submission, you think, Corey?
Yeah, this is a clinical performance from Theon, who has one of the best armbars in really any division. She's so tight. That judo background and her armbar from mount is really gnarly, and it looks like she is definitely getting prepared for another run at ADCC.
So, speaking of ADCC, now that match between Bianca Basilio and Theon, that was the final in 2019, and everybody was expecting this match to happen at Raw Grappling. Well, now we believe that the only way that we're going to see that match is in September at ADCC in a no-gi situation. Well, kind of interesting because now she's going to be doing her camp with JT Torres at Essential Jiu-Jitsu. I mean, she's technically an Atos athlete, as is Bianca Basilio. And it makes me wonder if in the bracket, whether they're going to actually be matched up to compete second round in the semi-final as opposed to the final.
I think everybody wants to see that match, and for my money, the earlier we see it, the better. Let's make sure we get that and then see whichever one of them pushes through.
Well, something to think about. But let's take a quick look at the interview with Theon as well, because she talks a little about Bianca and about her plans for ADCC in September.
I was very, very nervous in the lead up. I don't know, I felt like quite anxious beforehand, more than normal, so I'm just glad it's over now. I'm really grateful to Victoria for stepping up and stepping in on such short notice, because there was difficulty finding a new replacement that close. But then there's ADCC, and I'm looking forward to that. And maybe we'll just, it's a long time since we fought last, so it'll be good to see how things are now. I'm hoping to do something else in August, like maybe another show or another tournament, just something to keep the momentum going, because I like to stay active and competing, so COVID wasn't like that. So I'm trying to get as much in as possible now, so just make sure my nerves are under control, because I get very anxious.
You're gonna do your camp with JT Torres for ADC?
Yes, yeah. I'm really excited for that. I think it'll be really motivating to be around someone who's won it twice, so I'm very excited for that, and one of my friends is coming out to train, and I'm just really looking forward to the training and getting in the zone for it.
So there you have it. That she's going to be training with JT Torres, and I think that just being in the same room as a two-time ADCC champion, that kind of confidence, that kind of energy is going to definitely rub off. So an interesting choice for Theon to link up with JT. It definitely caught us a little by surprise, but it's not surprising in the grand scheme of things.
No, it makes a lot of sense to prepare with somebody who is that good at preparing for this tournament, right? JT famously doesn't compete very often, but when he does, he prepares in such a precise manner that he's always on top of his game for the exact right time in September.
So something I'm very happy about. So obviously people realize I am British, but maybe not everybody realizes that I'm from Wales. And Wales is a very small country with only a population of 3 million people, but it has a really healthy and a really, really strong and growing jiu-jitsu scene. Now, Theon Davis recently won the gold medal at the IBJJF World Championships, becoming not only the first British black belt to win IBJJF Worlds, but also the first Welsh black belt. Well, another top black belt competing out of Wales, who is also qualified for ADCC in September, is Ashley Williams. So Ash Williams had a really interesting match against Thiago Macedo. Now, he was originally slated to compete against Gabriel Souza. That match fell through. Thiago Macedo was brought in as a last-minute replacement. And roll this highlight tape because Ash Williams went out and he put on a really impressive show against a very tough, almost Houdini-like escape artist in Thiago Macedo. Now, Corey, Ash literally threw everything, including the kitchen sink, at Thiago in this match.
Yeah, and Thiago is, as you mentioned, a little bit of a defense artist, but he's so good at defending attacks that most people don't even get into these attack positions on Thiago. So for Ash to be able to turn it up and to get into these lock triangles, get onto the back, just start attacking arm bars, get underneath the legs, it really speaks to just how good Ash Williams is, not just as a European grappler, but as a grappler, full stop.
I can't tell you how happy it makes me to see an athlete like Ash Williams flying the red flag, the red dragon, the Wales flag on his back there. The best flag in the world. I don't care what anybody says. We've got it. But yeah, Ash Williams, man, he put on a great show. But look at this. Thiago Macedo had his own moments. You know, he almost got in this anaconda choke really late in the match. That was actually right before the overtime period, I want to say. But taking the win by decision was Ashley Williams. And I think it was just very interesting to see the variety of attacks that he used as well. You know, as we saw, flying triangle, Tarka Plata, rear naked choke, a little bit of everything. Now, Ashley Williams has been chipping away at those big names for a while now. He's currently sat number 10 in the rankings at 145 pounds. And as you'll hear now in this interview clip, he's saying that next up, he just wants to keep cracking away at those big names, and especially he's got his sights on ADCC. Roll the tape, please, Tyler.
It's not the belt really that matters to me. It's performance and going out there and doing my best jiu-jitsu. Obviously holding the title for a promotion is always a privilege, which brings pressure, but it always allows me to go back to that show and get a top tier name. So I'm looking forward to getting one of the best guys in the world to defend the title. And I've said for ages, you know, with ADCC, like win or lose at this stage, I'm fine-tuning, I'm improving my skill set, I'm working from top, bottom, everything you can think. So it was great to perform on that stage. I've got to be honest, I really just want any of the top 10 in the world, you know. I always say in the UK, you know, we get classed as like one of the best in the UK, and I'm stepping on the stage against world's best every month, you know, every couple of months. So I don't know what I've got to do to solidify myself among one of the best in the world, but if you keep giving them those guys to me that are considered best in the world, then I can keep trying to take them out one by one and prove that I'm up among the best.
So Ashley's going to be competing in the under 66 kilogram division come September. And as we were talking about this earlier, we were looking at the lineup for 66, and it's just full of firecrackers, right?
Yeah, Ash wants a shot at the top 10. He's going to get it at ADCC. Like,
yeah.
There's nobody in the ADCC invite list that under 66 that is not a top 10 ranked guy, except for maybe the top 16 guys, right?
And as a trials winner, he's almost guaranteed to be matched up with a top 10 guy first round. So from there on, he's going to have his wish and then some at ADCC. So the last performance we want to highlight is that of Diego Pato versus Ethan Krallinston. Now, this acted as a very good preview for the under 66 kilogram division. You can roll the tape while we're talking about this, because it's one of those matches, one of those rare matches where they actually suffered from being a submission-only match, because it was so even in the action. And there were so few significant moments enjoyed by either grappler. It was so evenly matched that, unfortunately, one of those matches where the decision didn't really mean that much. Now, of course, Pato, I'm sure he feels that he deserved it. He took the decision in this one. But I don't think anybody would have been mad had this match been called a draw.
No, and it's because both these guys, you don't need to give them submission-only rules to make this a submission-only match, right? Both Pato and Ethan fight for the submission. That's what they're after. That's what they're looking for. So as you said, maybe putting points on this match would have given some indication of, okay, this person's winning, so the other person has to try something, or sometimes these things happen, but nonetheless, such similar styles, right? Both very capable leg attackers, both very capable back attackers, both very capable wrestlers, and so sometimes, you know, styles make fights.
Very true. I guess they kind of cancel each other out a little bit here. We were denied a definitive kind of answer in this match, but it does give us an idea of what to expect at 66, and I just think it highlights how evenly matched the competitors are this year in ADCC 66 kilogram division, and Pato himself knows that, because he was treating this match as almost as a sort of a preview of what to expect for himself come September. Roll the tape and you'll hear it.
I'm really happy to get this this win, because this is a test for ADCC. Ethan is gonna be on my division, so yeah, now just get ready for ADCC and the other guys on my brackets.
All right. Short clip there from Diego Pato. But let's the jiu-jitsu do the talking, that guy.
One thing to note here about that match versus Ethan, that was Ethan's first match since May 2021.
Wow, that's a great point, actually. Yeah, so, of course, Ethan had a serious knee surgery in 2021, took him out of action for a long time, and it's been a long road back from injury through all the rehab and stuff and the training. And, I remember seeing... because it's kind of funny because I work out at a Gold's Gym here in Austin, Texas. It's literally next door to B Team. And the amount of times I go in there and I'll see Nicky Rod's working on the biceps or, Isaac Michelle and Nicky Ryan are hanging out doing something or other. I would always see Ethan on the Thigh Master. He'd always be on that machine. You always see the chicks on, kind of working like the sort of the thigh muscles. And he was doing it as part of his rehab, but it was always hilarious. I would always see Ethan, and he's just there working the buns.
Sure, he's got a good squeeze.
I bet, yeah. Well, that's it from Raw Grappling. Again, we have all the match highlights, interviews, replays, and more. You can go check those out on the site. And just to respond to a couple of the YouTube comments here. Now, Breeze asks a good question. Why would Hulk take a fight a month before ADCC rather than after? Sounds like a really scatterbrained move. It is a good question. I feel like it's a bold move to take MMA fight before ADCC. If ADCC is such a big goal, why would you want to compromise that? But at the same time, if you've got an MMA contract, he might not be in a position to say no.
Could be. Who knows?
Could be. Yep, we're seeing other comments here. GS is feeling good for Theon to win ADCC. We'll see about that. And we also got some paddle fans in the... it wasn't. It wasn't Ethan's first match.
He did come
Eric
back
Bigfoot, thank you very much for correcting us. That was Ethan's last grappling match last year. But you are correct that he did go and win combat jiu-jitsu.
The beginning of June.
Just a couple of weeks ago. Exactly. So thank you very much for the correction. And sorry, Ethan, for getting that wrong. That was a good performance as well from Ethan. Slapped the shit out of some guys. So it was pretty good. All right, let's move on because there's still more to talk about. And I think this is time now for the big story. I think this is what all you guys are tuning in for now. We got 250 people in the live stream and the chat's been firing with lots and lots of questions all about Gordon Ryan. So, as the title says at the bottom of the screen, Gordon Ryan and Pedro Marinho will compete for the WNO heavyweight title belt. Now, Who's Number One fans will know that title, up until recently, belonged to Tim Spriggs, who claimed it by winning the WNO championship in September of last year with probably one of his career best performances.
Yeah, he was a plus 4,000 underdog in that event. Came back and had 2 submissions, including a heel hook over Kaynan Duarte.
So it's been brought up a couple of times in interviews. Gordon Ryan has brought it up. Pedro Marinho has referenced it as well. But we're making it official right now that the winner of this match on July 14th between Gordon Ryan and Pedro Marinho will walk away with the WNO heavyweight title belt around their waist. Why is that when Tim Spriggs was the title holder? Well, let's just kind of go back a little bit. So Tim Spriggs was one of the team coaches and on the Who's Next series. And everybody expected Tim Spriggs to face off with Craig Jones at the Who's Next finale. Have those 2 team coaches go head to head on that finale, red versus blue, and settle that rivalry, that grudge that's going on there. Craig Jones did his absolute best to taunt Tim throughout the filming of that series, to get into his head, to get into his skin, to make him take that match. Tim was having none of it.
Yeah, and you can try and convince somebody to fight all you want. You can have a great T-shirt guy, for example, but if Tim refused the contract, and we're here.
So here we are, indeed. Now, Tim Spriggs said that he was that Craig Jones, a match with Craig Jones was beneath him as Who's Number One heavyweight champion. That Craig Jones had tried and failed to win the WNO light heavyweight title against Pedro Marinho earlier that year. And Tim was saying, I'm the heavyweight champ. I want matches against people like Gordon Ryan, Andre Galvao. Bring me the best. Well, we tried to make that happen. We tried to make that happen, and truth is that the conversation would not progress past a certain point. And it was unlikely, pretty much impossible, for Tim Spriggs to defend that WNO title belt in one calendar year of winning it, September in 2021. That there was no way to get him versus an opponent that he wanted to face, let's say, between now and September, of course, when ADCC. So the title was vacated, and now it is up for grabs. Gordon versus Pedro will compete for the title on July 14th. And, well, let's hear from Gordon Ryan a little bit, I think, because we have an interview clip of him talking about this match and about the situation with Tim. Let's hear it from Gordon quickly.
So the Pedro match came to fruition because of the fact that Tim Spriggs was calling me out to a match. And Tim Spriggs is another guy who I fought at ADCC 2019. I fought him in the second round, and I took his back in like 2 minutes and then strangled him. And he was saying that he doesn't want to compete against anybody besides Andre or me because we're the two best guys. And I was dealing with stomach issues at the time, so I wasn't competing. So he called me out, and we were going back and forth. I was like, hold my belt while I'm sick, and when I get back, I'll fight you for it. And so we were going back and forth. He was saying he's ready for the match. He declined the match with Craig. He declined the match with everyone besides me or Andre, and obviously Andre's retired. Then I start getting a little bit better. I'm like, hey, Tim, let's have a match. And he's like, no. And he's like, I'm not, the normal stuff, I'm not available on that day or this. And, so they basically gave him free reign to pick whatever date he wants. And obviously, when you're fighting me, you're making more money than you would make otherwise. And he's just like, flat out, no, I don't want the match. Now that Tim declined the match against me for the heavyweight belt, they're stripping him of the belt. And now Pedro is the 205 champion, so now he is he can potentially be the double champion of 205 and heavyweight. So now me and Pedro are fighting for the heavyweight belt, and then I'll fight Felipe for the heavyweight belt after I beat Pedro the next month.
So, as Gordon said, when presented the opportunity to face off with Gordon Ryan, Tim Spriggs just would not move ahead and discuss terms. So holding a title belt is not enough. A champion has to defend their title. And this is the question. Is Tim Spriggs being stripped? Well, how can you have a champion who's not going to defend their title?
Yeah, I mean, stripped by inactivity is something every organization does, right? And if you're inactive and refusing to be active,
it's time to crown a new champion. Right. It's that simple. So as a result, the belt now will be contested between Gordon Ryan and Pedro Marinho on July 14th. Now, Marinho, as we mentioned, he became the WNO light heavyweight champion in January of this year after a decision win against Craig Jones and a very strong performance, very careful performance, but a pretty one-sided decision win. Now, Gordon Ryan, despite the fact that he has a perfect 5-0 record in Who's Number One, he's never held a title in the organization.
Right, and a lot of that's because he really hasn't been in a position to hold the title, right? He has been taking fights against, he has had to take fights against athletes who maybe aren't worthy of a title shot against Gordon.
Or out of his weight class, right. Or he was unable to compete because of his stomach problems. There's a laundry list of reasons, but Gordon is back. Gordon is ramping up for ADCC. He's got the match with Pedro on July 14th. He's got Felipe Panna on August 7th. He's got ADCC at the end of September. So Gordon obviously has a plan for the next couple of months. But let's not count out Pedro Marinho, because he has an opportunity to join Tai Ruotolo in becoming only the second Who's Number One champ. Because Tai Ruotolo holds both the 170 and the 185 title belts. And Marinho has said that if he is successful, he already holds the 205 title. If he wins the heavyweight title, that he would even consider cutting weight and dropping down to 185 to become the champ.
Pedro has some lofty goals, and we love to see it. Especially, Craig Jones was 5-0 when he fought Pedro for the title. Gordon 5-0, Tai I think 7-0 at this point. But Pedro is developing at least a knack for knocking off guys with perfect records.
So there's a lot of conversation about this in the chat, a lot of questions asking what's up with Spriggs. Well, where does this leave Spriggs? Truthfully, nobody's really sure of his intentions right now because his focus seems to have shifted to pro wrestling. He hasn't had a grappling match since September of last year when he competed at the Who's Number One Championship, and he's been focused on pro wrestling since then. So he is scheduled to compete at ADCC in September. He could potentially face Craig Jones in the under 99 kilogram division because Craig Jones moved up from under 88. Mo Jassim even said on Instagram Live earlier today that he will not make Tim Spriggs versus Craig Jones first round, but he would consider it second round. So we could see that match happen there. But the truth is, beyond that, we're not really sure what Spriggs' long-term grappling plans are.
No, and as far as Tim has said, with the exception of ADCC, he's retired. So we got to take that for what it is, and the sport needs to move forward.
Going out on a high, going out by winning the Who's Number One Championship, career best performance, that he adds that to his title collection, such as, Nogi World Champion, Who's Number One Champion. You can't take that away from him. Those achievements will stand forever. Those wins are oppressive, and he will go down as the first ever title holder of the Who's Number One heavyweight belt. And you have to think that should he decide to return, potential matches with the new title holder could await him.
Would love to see that title shot one way or the other, no matter who is the defending champion. Tim Spriggs for the heavyweight belt is a much must-watch match.
Well, fans would love to see it, whether it's Craig Jones, whether it's Gordon Ryan, or whoever else. I'm sure people would love to see Tim back in action, and let's hope that that happens sooner than later. But as we mentioned, July 14th, that match between Pedro and Gordon will be for the heavyweight title. Lots of comments, lots of interest in the YouTube chat. Let's just address a couple of them quickly before we move on. And you can see that Amadeus Diamond here says that Spriggs is running away from Craig Jones. Says that he can't blame him at all. Carlos Diaz is asking if it's official that Spriggs has vacated the title. No, the title has been vacated on his behalf. Let's say it that way. And can you get stripped from choosing to not compete? I mean, as Corey said, that you can't become a title holder and not defend the title. That is the same goes for any organization. Inactivity results in a title being vacated and being put up for grabs by those willing to compete. Is Andre versus Gordon still happening at ADCC? Asks Wannabe Reto. Well, as far as we know, yes. Andre Galvao has started his ADCC camp. He is in training for that super fight on September, in the last weekend in September 17th, 18th. Gordon Ryan, I mean, yeah, barring any calamitous injury, he signed up for both the super fight and the over 99 kilogram division. So, yes. And then you see some comments here from Carlos Diaz says that Pedro is super tough. I mean, yeah, he beat Craig Jones, So there's a lot to say about this match between Gordon and Pedro. We're looking forward to it. We'll talk about it a lot next week in next week's show. It is literally happening in 9 days' time. It is going to be Thursday, July 14th, as the main event of the Who's Next finale. So don't miss that one. All right, final story for today. We're going to talk about 10th Planet. 10th Planet. Man, these guys, they have just expanded across the world now. I asked Eddie Bravo, actually, how many 10th Planet schools there were around the world, and he said he has no clue. He lost count. He said that the organization, the system, as he calls it, the 10th Planet system, has grown so much that there are black belts in the 10th Planet network that he's never even met. Because it used to be that Eddie Bravo promoted all of those black belts. And now his black belts are creating black belts. And it's just going on and on from there. And the team has picked up a lot of momentum, I would say, over this last year or two. And they will be sending no less than 8 competitors to ADCC 2022. Let's take a little look at this graphic that we have here that highlights all of the ADCC competitors this September. Talk us through who we got here, Corey.
ADCC trials winner, West Coast trials winner Keith Krikorian, Gio Martinez, Andy Varela, PJ Barch, John Blank, Kyle Baim, Vinny Magalhaes, and Elvira Karparainen.
So this is a powerful lineup right here. And as you said, you've got trials winners, Keith Krikorian, Kyle Bain. You got the invites, and let's say the veterans. You've got John Blank, Gio Martinez, and Vinny Magalhaes. And then you've got and Elvira, she's a veteran as well. And then you've got Andy Varela and PJ Barch, who earned invites as a result of their impressive performances at ADCC trials events. Now, they've got somebody in every division here, save for the women's heavyweight division. But every male weight division is represented, and one of the women's weight divisions as well. So, 10th Planet, these guys, they never had more than 1 or 2 competitors at ADCC every year. And it's been unusual to see that sort of that growth, all of a sudden this arrival of 10th Planet. So now, believe it or not, these guys are actually the joint second biggest team at ADCC in September. Atos are the number 1 team. They've got 11 competitors in total. And then Fight Sports have 8, as do 10th Planet. That's some serious growth.
Yeah, that's a major squad coming from what used to be a team that, as you said, would send 1 or 2. And they're not just sending 8 athletes. They're sending 8 athletes who any of them could really hit the podium.
Let's talk about then the 2 most recent invites. Let's talk about Andy Varela and PJ Barch. So these guys were the most recent announcements to join in the 77 kilogram division. So Varela took the silver medal at the ADCC West Coast Trials in his hometown of Las Vegas. And PJ Barch took 3rd at that tournament and 4th at the East Coast Trials. So their performances were impressive enough, made such an impression, let's say, on the ADCC organizers that it resulted in an invite. Now, we have a little training highlight here of Andy Varela in action. You went to see Andy last week in Las Vegas at 10th Planet, and this is just a brief glimpse of, I think, why the ADCC organizers were so keen to invite this competitor to the 77 kilogram division.
Yeah, Andy does not slow down, and that's from feet to floor. His wrestling is insatiable. His groundwork, right? He's constantly hunting new, unique, kind of high-risk submissions. And I think that's something that we get, whether it's in the training room or on the competition mats, because a lot of the stuff he was trying in training looked a lot like what I think sealed the deal was his match versus PJ Barch at West Coast Trials.
So, yeah, Andy's an interesting grappler because he doesn't have anything representing what you could have called the traditional 10th Planet system. You know, he's got great wrestling. He's got a really, really mean front headlock game, front choke game. And it's not the kind of the typical, let's say, 10th Planet system, which a lot of people think of is nowadays, they just think rubber guard, half guard, truck, right? Well, 10th Planet, the system has grown, the network has grown. You've got so many different styles represented among the team. And Andy Varela is a great example of one of those kind of athletes.
And I think guys like Andy and PJ are on the cutting edge of what 10th Planet looks like now.
Modern
right?
10th Planet.
Right. Wrestling heavy, leg lock heavy, a lot of Darce chokes, a lot of back attacks. So they are really leading the way for 10th Planet. Andy
Varela is a fierce competitor. You know, we've seen him on action in many different events. He's going to also compete here next week on the Who's Next finale. He's going to be in a match against ADCC Trials under 88 kilogram winner Jake Rodriguez, J-Rod. And that's going to be a crazy match. Really looking forward to that one. Varela is obviously sights set on ADCC, sights set on the match with J-Rod. But you got to speak to him a little bit in Vegas. And maybe one with Ronald's clip and just hear what he had to say.
Yeah, let's hear from Andy himself.
As far as I can remember, maybe the most 10th Planet athletes I've ever seen at ADCC. Yeah. What do you think has caused that surge of just like high level and 10th Planet athletes all making it to ADCC in the same year?
I think that most 10th Planet athletes came straight like no-gi every day, and I think that played a huge part of it, is that we are pretty much just used to it and putting all our all our pennies into that bank. So I think we were able to catch up pretty quick to all the top guys, you know. And for the most part, it's pretty crazy because there's different styles from like all the top guys. Like if you look at all top 10 Planet guys, they all have kind of different styles. So it's kind of crazy to see how there's been a guy from like pretty much every state at least to come up and start competing with the guys at the top level.
So yeah, as I said, Varela is a fierce competitor. I highly recommend if you get a chance to watch his match with Big Dan from the UFC Invitational last week, because that was just a showcase of Varela just going forward. Great blast double, really effective guard passing, and you can see all that and more in the training rounds that you uploaded. But for me, a big part of Varela as well is his mentality.
Yeah, he goes for the kill, and there's no really getting in his way. He doesn't back down for any match, whether that's, as I mentioned, the West Coast Trials, a teammate in PJ Barge, or a really like highly reputable competitor like Majid Hage, or even Big Dan, right? He's pushing forward no matter what.
So speaking of his teammate, PJ Barge. So PJ also got the call up to the under 77 kilogram division. We can play this clip here. This was from actually the ADCC West Coast Trials in Las Vegas. And PJ, his nickname, one of the best nicknames, is the Butter Panther because of his smooth moves. And he really does have very, very slick grappling. A great top player, fantastic wrestling, excellent work rate, really slick submissions. And PJ Barge, if he and Varela make it out to the first round, they would have to meet in the second round under ADCC rules at the tournament. Now, this is something they've done before. They don't train together. They train in Las Vegas and San Diego, so it's not like they're daily training partners. No issue in facing off at the trials. I'm sure it'll be the same at the World Championships. But Barge and Varela, I see some similarities between the two stylistically, as you mentioned. The great headhunters using kind of like, guillotine attack front headlocks and stuff. But very different competitors, I would say, overall.
How so?
Well, you look at the kind of the style of Varela, pure aggression, goes out there, tries to break his opponents. Barge, always a high work rate, but I would say just a touch more finesse to his grappling skills.
Yeah, I can definitely see that. But you look at their finishing rate, right? And they both are very high finishers, just right, created by different approaches to the grappling game.
Big fan of PJ Barge. And we've got an interview with him on the site, actually, where he talks about the prospect of being called up to ADCC. And he talks a lot about how he analyzes his past performances at the ADCC trials. He's very open about his failings. He's very open about the fact that he feels that he wasn't his best version of himself. He analyzes his mistakes and he talks about what he's done to fix that. But he also talks about the prospect of entering the 77 kilogram division, which is, I think, almost universally regarded as one of the toughest divisions at this year's tournaments. Let's hear from PJ.
As far as the performances go, and then some big wins over some guys that are really tough, and submission wins and things like that, and showing up and just doing the right things at the trials and showing up to all of them and doing my best and that's all that really the ADCC crowd looks for is like people showing up, people putting on performances, people beating the right guys I think I do. I think I have a good shot. The 77 kilograms is stacked for sure, man. It's actually really exciting. It's really exciting to me. I've competed with a lot of the guys that are in the bracket, and I've had matches with quite a few of them, and guys that did good in the past too, like Dante Leon is a guy that I think placed at 77 3 years ago, and I've had good close matches with him this past year, and so I feel like I fit right in at 77.
I don't think anybody disagrees. I think that PJ does fit in very well with that 77 kilogram division, as does Varela. And I just wanted to highlight a really good comment here from the YouTube live chat as well, from Chad D, about how people with a wrestling background who want to continue grappling have gravitated towards 10th Planet No-Gi system. And they're just now making their way to the black belt stage, i.e. Barge and Varela. And that's a very interesting point, because the whole no-gi phenomenon is a relatively recent thing. And a lot of people think that that's John Danaher and Gordon Ryan. But Eddie Bravo has been champion of no-gi grappling, of a pure no-gi jiu-jitsu school for many, many years now. And up until recently, it was actually kind of rare to find high-level jiu-jitsu schools that focused purely on no-gi grappling, right?
Right, and especially schools that were friendly to wrestlers, right? For such a long time, not just 10th Planet, but jiu-jitsu in general was very guard-heavy without really having a way to transition the guard into wrestling. I think the moment that the guard became a wrestling position, those wrestlers really started to thrive. And that's what we're seeing right now is wrestling up from a no-gi vantage point is a necessary skill. And you're telling wrestlers now that they can wrestle from the guard. That takes away their weakest position.
Yeah. So, yeah, just the whole kind of philosophical concept of no-gi grappling appealed to wrestlers looking to sort of transition into jiu-jitsu. And it made sense that many of them would find their place in the 10th Planet Network. And we're now seeing the results of those guys are making it through onto the biggest competitions in the world. So let's talk about another 10th Planet competitor, because we mentioned about how they're in the mix for both ADCC and the Who's Next finale. We mentioned a little bit how Varela will compete on the Who's Next finale on July 14th. Well, another 10th Planet competitor who is also in action on July 14th at the Who's Next finale is Kyle Chambers.
In the main event.
In the finale against Isaac Michel. Red versus blue. They fought their way through the tournament on the show. And now they will face off for the $10,000 cash prize and 3-match contract with Who's Number One. So play this tape a little bit because you can actually see this is recent training footage from 10th Planet featuring Kyle Chambers on top there doing his thing. And I just want to mention about how we haven't seen much of Chambers over the last couple of months because he broke his hand very badly earlier this year, really close to ADCC trials actually. That's why he didn't compete at trials. He had been working out really hard for it. He'd been training hard, working on his wrestling, and unfortunately broke his hand on the mat. Well, he's back. He's competed at some small local tournaments there in Southern California, and you can see here from these rounds, well, he's looking back to his old self.
Yeah, and this would make a great redemption opportunity, right? Missing the opportunity to compete at ADCC, but he's in probably the biggest opportunity of his life in the Who's Next finale against Isaac Michel. And maybe not the greatest consolation for missing ADCC, but a huge consolation nonetheless to win $10,000, a 3-match Who's Number One contract.
Come on, man. That's any grappler's dream, is to have a $10,000 cash prize and a Who's Number One contract. ADCC can wait another 2 years. So one of his teammates can get that shine. But no, Chambers is locked and loaded. He's fully focused on this Who's Next finale against Isaac Michel. And we just have a quick interview clip here with some words from Kyle Chambers. Take it away, please.
Yeah, man, I like a lot of things about Alex. I like his, Isaac. He's really good pressure, man. He has really good wrestling. I like how he has good cardio. He always puts it on his opponents, man. He has really good finishing ability. He's very similar to me in a lot of aspects of that, but we also have different styles, which is really interesting for our matchup because I feel like he's in more of a top game, take your back, nice little duck unders and stuff like that. And I'm more of a guard player, so I feel like it's a clash of two styles. I like a lot of things. I see a lot of his strengths, which is really just really good fundamental jiu-jitsu. He has really good technique and high understanding of the movements that he does, but I feel like there is a little bit of weaknesses, in certain positions. I feel like there is positions that he's maybe not familiar with, and I'm trying to expose those, so.
One thing he said, it was right after the show, kind of found your 2 finalists, but he said he's going to take your back and get the finish there. What do you think about that? Because I saw some people in the show get to that position and they did not obviously get the finish. But what did you make of that?
I like the confidence. We've seen a lot of people on the show have that same kind of confidence. We had Kulrak have the same kind of confidence and a bunch of stuff before. A lot of people sit there and get to my back and finish me, and you see a lot of people get there and they don't have that same ability. It's easier said than done. A lot of things in life is like that. So I like that. I take the challenge on. I respect his ability to finish from the back. So I respect it, but we're preparing for that as well, and I don't see that as any threat.
There's $10,000 on the line, WNO contract for Who's Next. Is that factoring in? That's a big opportunity for somebody.
Yeah, man, I love the $10,000, and I feel like the contract, but it's just like it's not even about the money to me. It's just like all the blood, sweat, and tears. Like I said before, all the training. It's like this is what this means. Like that W means more than that $10,000. Like money's cool, but money comes and goes. It's just like getting that legendary status, you know, just getting some of your hard work and seeing the results, you know, and that's one of it. Like, win or lose, you already got to this point, so it shows that what I'm doing is correct, but that's just like the little cherry on top, you know, and that's exactly what I want. I want that little nice bow on it, you know, so that's what this is about, you know. I want to finish strong, you know. I started 3-0, I want to get that 4-0.
Kyle Chambers hunting that legendary status. I think that's a great way to put it. And you can see that he's really focused on that task. July 14th, Who's Next finale. You're going to see Kyle Chambers versus Isaac Michel as the finale of the Tezos Who's Number One, the Who's Next Submission Fighter Challenge show. And I think that's something that we're very, very excited for. I know that you guys are excited for it after having seen all 6 episodes of the show and having seen them work their way through those elimination matches, all of course no time limit submission only. And just to let you know, in case you weren't sure, this match between Kyle and Isaac will also be no time limit submission only. There is only one way to win, and that is to make your opponent tap out. Just like on the show, this match on July 14th, no time limit. Can't wait for that one. Excited?
Can't wait. Yeah, huge incentive for no time limit sub only for these guys to get it done quickly at home. Make sure you order your pizza ahead of time, and yeah, let's see what these two guys have to offer each other and the rest of us.
Well, that's pretty much it from today's show. A lot of good jiu-jitsu talk today. Really appreciate everybody in the live chat for joining us for the conversation and keeping things going here at FloGrappling. We've got tons of match footage, got tons of interviews with top ADCC figures, everybody from the likes of John Danaher and Eddie Bravo to Gordon Ryan, Andre Galvao, and many, many others, all the top athletes. We've got tons of ADCC training, interview footage. We're highlighting classic matches from the last couple of editions of ADCC. We got all this and much, much more on FloGrappling. And we'll see you next week for another episode of Grappling Bulletin. Till next time.